لا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا ويزرع الورد فينا والرياحينا وينشر الهدي إيمانا وموعظة فبالجهالة قد خابت مساعينا من لا يفرج كربا.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaban bikum. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Live with myself, Sulaiman Rawat. A brand new Islamic year, alhamdulillah, 1434. The month of Muharram has commenced. And let our dua at the onset be that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala make this year, the year 1434, a more spiritually uplifting year than the previous year of our lives, 1433. It also is a moment of reflection that another year has passed in my existence. The day I was born, it was already stipulated how many years I would live. And by the passing of this year, another year has passed that would never return. Another year from that quota which I have been given for my existence in this dunya, my temporary and my fleeting existence in this material world, another one of those years has lapsed. You know, that's one of the reasons why we don't celebrate birthdays in Islam, because your birthday is actually a day of reflection. It's a great day, or it's a day of great burden, that another year has passed in my life. Have I actually fulfilled the rights of my Allah? To what extent have I sinned in the last year? So we need to take a moment out and reflect that in the last year, what have I done? The wrong that I have done, let me make tawbah for it. Let me rectify it. Let me set the record straight with my Allah. Let me clean the slate between me and my Allah. Whatever good I have done, let me attribute it to Allah, not to myself, so that pride and conceit doesn't set in. And then let me ask Allah to increase me in it. So let's have New Year's resolutions, but of a spiritual nature. Islam tells us you can follow the Gregorian calendar, the solar calendar, for your worldly purposes. So in terms of your meetings and your school terms and leave and all of that, you can follow the Gregorian calendar. There's nothing wrong in that. But in terms of your religious affairs, in terms of your spiritual affairs, you follow the lunar calendar, the Islamic calendar, the Hijri calendar. So Ramadan will start as per the Hijri calendar, the lunar calendar, Islamic calendar. Hajj will be according to that calendar, not the Gregorian calendar. So in a nutshell, our worldly affairs, the solar calendar. Our spiritual affairs, the lunar calendar. So now that it's a new month in our Hijri year, 1434, a new year rather, not only a new month, let us say, let me take my spiritual resolutions, my New Year resolutions from a spiritual perspective. If I'm not performing my salah, I'm going to perform my salah. If I'm not adopting hijab, at wearing the niqab, then let me commence with that. And yes, the Gregorian year, I can use that for other objectives, other New Year's resolutions. New Year's resolutions has no Islamic basis as such. It's not to say that you have to have a New Year's resolution, but Islam always encourages us to set targets, to look ahead, to plan ahead, to have ambition, to have aims and objectives, but not to rely on ourselves, to rely on Allah. Now, what happens with these New Year's resolutions, it has become a joke. New Year's resolutions are known to be something which are not kept. Every year, come the beginning of the year, you're making the same resolutions you made the last year. You never really progressed. Let's not be negative. أَنَا عِنْدَ ظَنِّ عَبْدِ بِي. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, I treat you as per your expectations of me. So let's say, oh Allah, I'm not looking at my weakness, that so many years have passed, and every year I took a resolution that I'll change. No, I'm looking at your greatness. Allah, make this the year that will be the different year. This is the year, inshallah, that I will fulfill my resolutions. Why not take out 5 minutes of your time, perform 2 rakats of salah? That, oh Allah, the new Islamic year has started, the spiritual year has started. I'm going to take a few resolutions. Allah, guide me to make the right resolutions. Guide me with the ability to prioritize correctly. And oh Allah, you bless me and you enable me now to be able to fulfill those resolutions and to uphold those resolutions and to realize those targets and those objectives which I have set for myself. Nothing is beyond Allah. Let's not look at our weakness and our poor track record. Let's look at the greatness of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala and the miraculous nature in which Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala works. Muharram is also the third of the 3 consecutive Ashur Hurum. Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah have passed, they've lapsed. This is Muharram, the third of those 3, and Rajab is a standalone, as I've explained before, the 4 Ashur Hurum. Let's ensure that we maximize on good deeds. After the Fara'id, most important, stay away from sin, because sin is also multiplied during the sacred months, during the Ashur Hurum. And let's ensure that if we can, we keep the fast of Ashura, We'll talk more about that next week as well, inshallah. That the 10th of Muharram to fast, and either the day preceding it, the 9th, or the day after it, which is the 11th. To keep the fast of the 10th, either with a fast preceding it or a fast subsequent to it, so that we can take blessings from that as well, and we can and secure great reward. And remember, this is a Hijri calendar. When Umar radiallahu anhu was asked that how do we commence our Islamic calendar? Must it be from the birth of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam? He said the problem there is difference of opinion as to when exactly Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. Demise, he said, yeah, we could start it from the demise of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but then it was obviously a very sad moment. And finally they chose Hijrah, because Hijrah became a very defining moment. It became a very differentiating moment between Haqq and Batil. So let us say, one of the lessons from Muharram, obviously there'll be discussions on Karbala, there'll be discussions on the assassination of Hussein radiallahu anh. But that happened in Muharram. That had nothing to do with the calendar, which obviously took place much prior to that. The Islamic calendar started in the time of Umar radiallahu anh. And Ashura, the benefits and the virtues of Ashura have nothing specifically to do with the martyrdom of Hussein radiallahu anh. Obviously that was a great tragedy in the history of Islam. And every time we speak about it, it tugs at the chords of emotion. But Ashura already had its basis and its virtue from the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which was long before the martyrdom of Hussein radiallahu anh. But because it took place also in the month of Muharram on the 10th, you will hear ulama speak about it. You'll hear them talking about the lessons that we need to take from that very sad chapter in our history. You'll hear people and ulama talking about the virtues of Ashura, about the history of Muharram, about what happened with Musa alayhi salatu wassalam and Fir'aun and the Pharaoh. Some of the actions which are linked to Muharram, which have no basis. All those discussions will take place. But let's not forget there's also this Hijrah, because Muharram is the first month of the Islamic calendar, and Umar radiallahu anh then stipulated at the time we'll start it from the point of Hijrah. That's why we say 1434 Hijri, meaning 1434 years after the Hijrah took place. So I'm not going to go into the details of it now, because it's not my topic of discussion for tonight, but read up on the Hijrah. Open the books of Siram and read about that emigration of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and what are the lessons that we can learn from there. So may Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala make this year ahead a much more beneficial one for us, both in terms of our worldly affairs and our spiritual affairs, compared to the years that we have left behind. Okay, coming up this evening on Friday Night Live, we're going to commence after the break with our Tafseer discussion. Still the story of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. We discussed 2 verses last week and 2 verses the week before. That instruction to the Bani Israel to enter Al-Ardul Muqaddasa, the Holy Land. Today we discuss the remaining 3 verses, and then the story comes to an end. After that, in our current affairs segment, there was an unfortunate story that dominated headlines throughout the country with regards to a Muslim woman putting out a reward for anyone who could give her information as to who hacked her email account and took a sex video which she had produced for her fiancé and nude photos of herself and disseminated it via WhatsApp and Facebook and Twitter and BBM. How does that fit in from an Islamic perspective? What are the lessons that we have to learn? In our story segment for this week, we talk about a story from the life of the great wise person, Luqman Hakim, rahimahullah. Then our nikah segment, we talk about showing gratitude for the positive qualities and the positive attributes in your spouse. And finally, we have our Sunnah segment, with which we conclude the program. And in that segment, we talk about not criticizing food. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala grant us the ikhlas and sincerity, so that the speaker benefits from the program as well as the viewers out there. And may Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala make it, as we always say, motivational, educational, inspirational, inshaAllah. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen.
من ذا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا من ذا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا.
Welcome back to Friday Night Live. We move on to our Tafseer segment now. Previously we had discussed 2 verses last week and 2 verses the week prior to that, 4 verses in total. The story is about Musa alayhi salatu wassalam's instruction to the Banu Israel, and this was an instruction of Allah which he was communicating, that they needed to enter Baytul Muqaddas after they were saved from the tyranny of the Pharaoh, and after they were saved when the Pharaoh was drowned in the sea. And we spoke 2 weeks ago, the first verse, وَإِذْ قَالَ مُوسَى لِقَوْمِهِ يَا قَوْمِ اذْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ عَلَيْكُمْ إِذَا جَعَلَ فِيكُمْ أَنْبِيَاءَ وَجَعَلَكُمْ مُلُوكًا. He reminded the Banu Israel of the favors of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala upon them, both spiritual as well as material. Then he conveyed the instruction, يَا قَوْمِ ادْخُلُوا الْأَرْضَ الْمُقَدَّسَةَ, that, oh my people, enter the blessed land. And we explained the blessed land is the whole Sham area, which includes Jordan, Syria, Palestine, Lebanon, and the most blessed city is Al-Quds, Jerusalem, and in Al-Quds it is Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa Al-Mubarak, that's the most blessed site. Then last week we discussed the response. قالوا يا موسى إن فيها قوما جبارين. They said, oh Musa, there is a very tyrannical nation there, the Amalekite tribe. And we explained that Musa alayhi salam had sent the 12 chiefs of the 12 tribes of the Banu Israel to go on a fact-finding mission. They had been arrested on suspicion of spying, and they were about to be executed until the leader said to them, I'll spare you if you go back to your people and tell them how strong we are and what a great physique we have, so that they desist from entering our city. And when they came and informed Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam told them, let that not deter us. Allah has given us a command and Allah has promised us victory. Don't tell your people anything, it will just worry them unnecessarily. Let us proceed and fulfill the command of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. But from the 12, only 2 listened to Musa alayhi salam, Yusha bin Nun and Kalib bin Yuqina, and they didn't say anything, but the others told a few people who they thought were close to them, who in turn told a few people, and like that everyone knew. And then they said to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Inna lan nadkhulaha abadan ma damu fiha, that, oh Musa, we are not going to enter there, because that's a very, very tyrannical tribe. Then we discussed last week as well, قال رجلان, 2 people, meaning Yusha bin Nun and Kalib, they stood up and they tried to reason, these 2 chiefs, but the Banu Israel did not want to listen, they did not want to understand, and they said to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, that فَإِذَا دَخَلْتُمُوهُ فَإِنَّكُمْ غَالِبُونَ. Or rather, these people said, these 2 leaders said to the Banu Israel, go there, Allah has promised you victory. وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. If you believe in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, then if you truly believe, have reliance on Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. So Musa alayhi salam told them about the instruction. They rejected. These 2 tried to reason with them, and still they rejected. That's where we left it last week. Now we continue the discussion from there. So even after Yusha bin Nun and Kalib bin Yuqinna tried to reason with them, they still did not want to listen. If they didn't listen to Musa alayhi salam in the first place, where were they going to listen to the 2 chiefs who were not prophets? So they were adamant. Again they said to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, قالوا يا موسى إنا لن ندخلها أبدا ما داموا فيها. Musa, we will never go there. We will never go there. Never ever. As long as that Amalekite tribe is there, they're too powerful. We don't want to risk our lives. Now they said something which was really hurtful to Musa alayhi salam, and something which was really a very, very dangerous statement to make. فَاذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ فَقَاتِلَا إِنَّا هَاهُنَا قَاعِدُونَ. That, oh Musa, you and your Allah go and fight. We are sitting right here. You and your Allah go and fight. We are sitting right here. Now the ulama say, if they meant with this statement, if they had meant to mock Musa alayhi salam or to mock Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, then obviously that is blasphemy. But if we look at what happened afterwards, it was obvious that they still remained believers. So it was not mockery. They didn't intend mockery. What they were trying to say is that, oh Musa, you go. Allah has instructed you, you go. Allah will help you. You is Nabi. We're not coming. We're not coming. So although it wasn't blasphemous, it was still a very, very serious statement. And that's why when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, on the occasion of Badr, 313 Sahaba ill-equipped, 1,000 mushrikeen, they are full of armor and well-equipped, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam is making dua, and this one Sahabi from the Ansar, he comes forward and he says, Ya Rasulullah, don't worry, we are 100% behind you. We won't do like the people of Musa alayhi salam did to him. We won't tell you, فَذْهَبْ أَنْتَ وَرَبُّكَ فَقَاتِلَا إِنَّا هَاهُنَا قَاعِدُونَ, that you go and fight, your Allah will help you, we're sitting right here, because the odds are against us. You see, the Banu Israel, they saw that the Amalekite tribe, physically very strong, where are we going to be able to take them on? But Sahaba, no. This is the Nabi of Allah. This is the deen of Allah. We do what we have to do. The rest is in Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala's hands. Now Musa alayhi salatu wasalam makes dua to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. After his people have made it quite clear, we're not interested. What does Musa alayhi salam say? قال ربي إني لا أملك إلا نفسي وأخي. Oh my Allah, I have control over only myself and my brother Harun. It's only myself and my brother Harun over whom I have control. Now the scholars write, why didn't he mention about Yusha bin Nun and Caleb? Because those two were also standing with him. Those two were also trying to reason with their people that let's fulfill the instruction of Allah. And the ulama of Tafseer give a very nice answer. They say, because Yusha bin Nun and Caleb, they were not Anbiya. Anbiya are protected, divinely protected by Allah. So their circumstances could change. At that moment they were with Musa alayhi salam. Later on their circumstances could change. So he couldn't speak with certainty about them. But himself and his brother, he knew exactly where both of them stood. So he said, oh Allah, the two of us, we really want to fulfill your command. But now what do? We can't go alone and they don't want to support us. And then Musa alayhi salatu wasalam makes this dua. فَفْرُقْ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ الْقَوْمِ الْفَاسِقِينَ. Allah, you now make the distinction between us and this transgressing nation. Meaning, oh Allah, they have done wrong. So take them to task for the wrong that they have done, but reward us because we are willing to comply and we are willing to fulfill your instruction. And then the last verse, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala says, قَالَ فَإِنَّهَا مُحَرَّمَةٌ عَلَيْهِمْ 40 سَنَةً. For 40 years, they will not be allowed to enter Baytul Muqaddas. For 40 years, they will just wander around and they'll end up at the same spot every day. If they try to go to Baytul Muqaddas, they'll travel the whole day. At night, they'll end up exactly where they were when they departed. If they try to go back to Egypt, they'll travel the whole day. At night, they'll end up exactly where they were. Look at the power of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. No fences, no walls, no guards. They couldn't move an inch. And why this particular punishment? Wandering in the wilderness for 40 years. The scholars say, because they made the statement, Inna ha huna qa'idun. We're sitting right here, we're going nowhere. Because they said that, Allah said, okay, for 40 years you'll sit there and you'll go nowhere. When Musa alayhi salam told them, let's go to Baytul Muqaddas, they said, you go with your Allah and fight. We're sitting here, we're going nowhere. Allah said, okay, is that your attitude towards my Nabi? Now you'll sit for 40 years. And for 40 years, they wandered in the wilderness. Nothing happened. They couldn't go anywhere. They would come back to exactly the same spot. And it isn't that big a gap between Egypt on the one hand and Jerusalem on the other hand. The gap is not all that big. The distance is not all that big. If you want to look at the square kilometer or square mileage. But that's the power of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. But although at that, during that period, for 40 years, they're under the punishment of Allah. But a great lesson for us to learn, that sometimes even if you have sinners, but amongst those sinners, if they are pious people, the pious people still draw the mercy of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. What do I mean by this? Because Musa and Harun were there, the two Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam, who were compliant to the teachings of Allah. When the Banu Israel complained that there's no cloud cover, we're feeling the heat, Allah had sent clouds to give them cover wherever they would go. When they complained there's no water, Allah told Musa alayhi salam, strike the rock and the 12 rivers flowed. When you go to Petra, then just as you're climbing the mountain going towards Petra, they'll take you, they make you get off at this one particular well, and they say that is the well from where the 12 rivers of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam flow. How authentic it is, I don't know, but that stream, I had the opportunity of drinking water from the stream. Very tasty, natural water, mashallah. But Musa alayhi salam struck the rock and 12 rivers flowed. It was while they were in this wadi yatih, as they call it, yatihuna fil ard, in this wilderness wandering away, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala sent to them manna and salwa when they wanted food. So these blessings came even though it was a period of punishment because of the presence of Musa and Harun alayhim salam. Harun alayhi salam was the first to pass away, and then Musa alayhi salam passed away either 6 months later or 1 month later. When you're going to Petra, which is now one of the 7 wonders of the world, it's about 2 hours from Amman in Jordan. Then on top of the mountain, they'll show you like a white structure. It's very difficult to get up there, but they'll tell you that that's where Harun alayhi salatu wasalam is buried. As far as where Musa alayhi salam is buried, there are very different reports. The Jews would claim he's buried on Mount Nebo in Jordan. The ulama would tell you that there isn't anything to prove or to back that up. There is a claim that Musa alayhi salam is buried just near Baytul Muqaddas, because it is mentioned that he made dua to Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, that it is not decreed for me to be able to enter Baytul Muqaddas, but at least let me be buried as close as possible. There is one spot between Jerusalem and the Jordanian border, the Allenby Bridge border, as they call it, where they show you the grave of Musa alayhi salam, and it's got like a red hilly surroundings. And there is a narration in the hadith when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam says that on the night of Mi'raj, as he was coming to Al-Aqsa, he passed by the grave of Musa alayhi salam and saw Musa alayhi salam performing salah in his grave, and the surrounding areas were about reddish brown, a very hilly area. But we can't say with certainty where Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is buried. Nonetheless, it was then Yusha bin Nun who was granted Nubuwah, and after the 40 years had passed away and that whole generation had passed away, the 40 years had passed and that whole generation of Banu Israel had passed away, he took the next generation and they entered Baytul Muqaddas. Even the Anbiya alayhi salatu wasalam went through difficulties. It is mentioned that one of the reasons why it was stipulated for Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam to meet Musa alayhi salam on the night of Mi'raj, it was an indication to the Nabi of Allah that when it comes to Aqsa, the Nabi of Allah went there on the occasion of Mi'raj, but he never went there as a conqueror. It was his deputy Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh who actually saw Aqsa being returned to the Muslims, like Musa alayhi salam. So that was the similarity between Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. The ulama have written what were the similarities between those Anbiya whom the Nabi of Allah met on the different heavens on the occasion of Mi'raj and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And the similarity between Musa alayhi salam and the Nabi of Allah was that, like Yusha bin Nun, who became a Nabi after Musa alayhi salam, he went into Baytul Muqaddas, Jerusalem, not Musa alayhi salam. Similarly, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam would not go, but Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh would be the leader at the time. And the verse concludes, فَلَا تَأْسَ عَلَى الْقَوْمِ الْفَاسِقِينَ. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala says to Musa alayhi salam, consoling him, because every Nabi, even though his people have done such a treacherous thing to him, and they've hurt him so badly, he still cares about his people. He still doesn't like to see them punished. And the ulama say there's a great lesson here for every da'i, every person involved in da'wah and tabligh, that Musa alayhi salam still remained firm. He still remained with these people, no matter what they did, because his job was to convey the message of Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala. We would have become despondent. We would have wanted to leave. That such people, no loyalty whatsoever. Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala consoles him. Musa, they are a transgressing nation. Don't take it too personally. You have done your responsibility. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq.
من ذا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا من ذا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا.
Welcome back to Friday Night Live, and we move on now to the next segment of the program, the current affairs segment, where we look at what was in the news in the last week. Earlier this week, before going to the radio station for my morning drive program, I received an SMS from one of those people, a friend of mine, who's very in tune with what's happening in the world, very in tune with what's being reported in the media, and he told me, look at page 3 of the Times newspaper. Sis. He wrote sis with 3 exclamation marks. And I sent him an SMS back saying that I haven't yet reached the station. What's the story about? And he said that, it's too despicable to describe. Read it for yourself. And when I got there, I was, shock and horror to read about a 35-year-old Muslim woman who's actually willing to make her story public and say, listen, I made a sex video. I took photos of myself in the nude, and I sent it to my fiancé who was overseas, and somebody hacked into our email accounts, stole the video, stole the pictures. It's gone viral now. People are forwarding it via BBM, WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter. The community is condemning me. People are making indecent approaches, making proposals, asking me if I want to be a second wife. And she's putting out a 10,000 rand reward for anybody who can, give her a lead, and if the person is caught out, she's going to press criminal charges. Now, firstly, when you come across a story like this from an Islamic perspective, you think to yourself, should I discuss it or not? Because you don't want to create more sensation. You don't want to stimulate curiosity in the minds of people that who could this person be? Where is this salon? Who is she? Because obviously that goes against the grain of what the Sharia allows and against the grain of our ethics and morals. But because the story came to the fore and the person's name was not taken, we had to comment on the story. Firstly, we had to remind people that it's a no-brainer. Your fiancé is not your husband. There is no relationship between you and that fiancé as far as Sharia is concerned, because you are not married. You are like two strangers unto one another. So, it's a no-brainer that is impermissible and that is not acceptable. However, Having said that, even for married people, we have to remind ourselves with regards modesty, with regards chastity, with regards the morals and the values that Islam has taught us. What happens in the intimacy of the bedroom, that is one thing. But do we understand the consequences of what we're doing? Apart from the modesty and the haya and the jurisprudic ruling, even between marriage couples, leaving that aside, understand how reckless it is, how stupid it is, to be totally honest. Why do I say so? I say so because technology is a great boon. It has made life easy in many ways. We can fulfill our responsibilities as Muslims in many ways with technology easier, but it also has become a huge challenge. It's also a bane sometimes. And nowadays, a cell phone can get stolen. You capture such material and your cell phone gets stolen and it gets viral. Imagine the embarrassment. If you don't feel embarrassed, imagine embarrassment to your parents, to your in-laws. People are all looking at that. People are all viewing something like that. Maulana Yunus Patel rahmatullah alayhi used to say that imagine you capture this. And are you thinking, oh, it's my husband, it's my wife? No. Imagine you have to pass away in a car accident. Cell phones are lying all over the show now. And who picks up that cell phone? Who views it? Who looks at it? It might be somebody close to you. You take it and you put it on your laptop. And somebody, you pass away. Sometimes in a robbery, multiple people are killed. Other family members come now. They look at what's in that laptop. They look at what's on that video camera. Imagine that remains now. And years down the line, your own children get to see that. Allah protect us. Allah protect us. Sometimes I wonder if we have really lost our sense of morals and values. If we have just lost common sense. Because common sense is not all that common these days. Nowadays, even if you erase, when you send your cell phone in for repairs, there's all these backup memories. There's all these hidden folders. You don't even realize it's there, they can pick it up. Sometimes just from the hard drive of the computer, they can pick up that which has been deleted. So the person who's now repairing your computer is ogling away. And you didn't even realize it. That's the risk that we are taking. Nowadays, children are more intelligent than us when it comes to gadgets. You may be thinking, I deleted something, or I hid it, or password enabled. Imagine your own child comes across such material, such content of their father and mother. So that's the one aspect. The other aspect is with regards to the community. If somebody passes like this, this kind of material onto you, Islam teaches us that you mustn't now get so curious. Curiosity killed the cat. To want to know who the person is and to want to condemn that person. Yes, if you know that person well, to go and advise that person and warn that person, that's a separate matter. Firstly, it's none of your business now to find out who that person is or to gossip about the whole thing. Secondly, it's impermissible to view. Thirdly, it's impermissible to forward. You must delete it there and there. And send a message to the person who sent it on to you that please don't send this to me again. Unfortunately, we are seeing this becoming all the more common. We see young girls sometimes do this to impress a boy. Then it becomes viral. It goes on the internet. They lose their reputation. Then they become suicidal. Married people sometimes do this. Then the marriage breaks up. Sometimes, we used to think this only happens in Hollywood, where you hear about these sex tapes, when they break up and then the sex tape leaks and they get so embarrassed. Now, sometimes they intentionally leak it because that's the very twisted world that they live in. Little did we imagine that this would come and visit the shores of Muslims. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala save us. So it's not for us to condemn any particular person or the particular person in this story, but because it's come to the public, it's for us to discuss it from an Islamic perspective. And most importantly, to draw the necessary lessons from it. Let's not judge others. Allah protect us all. One person may have one weakness. We may have 5 other weaknesses. But at the same time, we have to also discuss Islamic perspectives to things which find themselves in the limelight and use it as an opportunity to remind ourselves and to remind others as to what the teachings of our deen is in this particular regard. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala grant us the understanding. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. We move on to the segment where we discuss stories and anecdotes. Today I want to talk about Luqman A.S. When it comes to Luqman A.S, some ulama say he was a Nabi, some ulama say he was a pious person, but whatever the case, he was of such a caliber, he was of such a status that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentions him in the Quran by name. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا لُقْمَانَ الْحِكْمَةَ أَنِ اشْكُرْ لِلَّهِ. Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala mentions he was granted hikmah, he was granted a lot of wisdom. And some ulama of the opinion that he was given a choice that, oh Luqman, do you want nubuwwah or do you want wisdom? And he chose wisdom. An entire surah of the Quran has been named against him, after him. And this is a surah in the 21st juz of the Quran Kareem. So at one stage in his life, Luqman A.S. was employed as a laborer in the orchard. And one day the owner of the orchard came into the orchard and said, Luqman, get me a fruit. Get me something tasty, nice to eat, So Luqman A.S. brought it. So what the owner did is he cut a slice first and he presented it to Luqman. So Luqman ate it, and he ate it with such relish that everyone around him thought that he really must be enjoying this fruit. It must be really sweet. It must be really tasty. So the owner thought, hey, why must I miss out? So the next slice, the owner took it. And it was extremely bitter. So bitter that you couldn't keep it in your mouth. You had to immediately eject it and spit it out. So the owner said, Luqman, what's wrong with you? This thing is so bitter. Why did you eat it? So Luqman A.S. said, yes, I know it's bitter. I know it's bitter. But how can I show ungratefulness to that hand that has fed me so many times? There were so many times when you gave me fruit and it was sweet. There's one time that it was bitter. Now, why must I complain? What's the benefit of complaining because I got one piece of bitter fruit? You've done so much good for me. Now, there's one day you gave me fruit and it happened to be bitter. Why must I complain? It's not even your fault anyway. So, what are some of the lessons that we learn from here? One is with regards employment. The ulama say, don't despise halal employment. No matter, you might be getting a very meager wage, it might not be a high-profile job, it might not be the most stimulating job, but the fact that you got a job, appreciate that. Luqman A.S. was a laborer in the orchard, but he appreciated that, look, my owner feeds me, he gives me money, he sees to me, so at least now this one day some bitter fruit came, I must make a big hoo-ha about it. Great lesson for employees. Right? The employer is a human. Sometimes he'll transgress, sometimes he'll overstep. But look at the bigger picture. At least I have a job. What percentage of the population are unemployed? Look at all the strikes in the mines, in Western Cape, in the farms. I'm not earning so little. Let me show appreciation. Secondly, when you show appreciation for the bounties of Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala, it produces contentment of heart. Some people, you really feel sorry for them. Their whole lives they're complaining. One complaint after the other. Allah has given them so much, but they're still complaining. They're never happy, they're never at ease, they don't have contentment because they're always complaining. And the third thing, complaining makes life dull and unpleasant for you and others as well. Others say, this person never happy. This employee of mine's always moaning, groaning, Mother Grandi, always going on. This brother of mine's, this sister of mine's, never happy. Always looking for faults, always nitpicking. No, let's learn this lesson from the story of Luqman A.S. Look at the many positives. Don't always focus on the few negatives. May Allah grant us the understanding. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. Marital tip for the week. Last 2 weeks we mentioned, the week before last we said, don't fight in front of the children. Don't have your arguments and your marital tiffs in front of your children. It makes them feel insecure. You are exposing the faults of one another in front of your children. And the children will lose respect for their parents because they'll realize what are the weaknesses of the parents. Then last week we said that even if you fight in privacy, don't let the after effects and the tension sometimes that lingers for a while after the marital dispute, don't make that become apparent to your children. Sometimes the children realize we were not there when they fought, but we know exactly when they fought last night. Because you can just see it. Mommy comes with a balloon back to the table. And Abba comes, with such a sulky looking face like either he had lemon juice or pawpaws are for sale, as they say. So don't let it become apparent to your children, to your in-laws, to your parents, to your siblings. No. Everybody can see that, I know, they had some, on the way to the function, they had a tiff. On the way to the function, husband and wife had an argument. You can just see it, how they're giving each other the stares, and how they're giving each other the cold shoulder, and how their remarks are dripping with sarcasm. When they're talking to one another, you can see that these two had it out. No, don't let it happen that way as well. So those were the 2 tips that we gave for the last 2 weeks. Today's tip follows on from what we just discussed in the story of Luqman alayhi salatu wasalam. about showing gratitude, about looking at the many positives. There are many positives in life, and don't always focus on the few negatives. So the point in the tip I want to give for this week, show gratitude to Allah and to your spouse for the many positives in your spouse. Because when you show gratitude to Allah, we all know the principle. What does Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala say? لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ. If you show gratitude, then I will increase for you. So if you show gratitude to Allah, Allah, you bless me with a wife or a husband who's loyal, who's got good morals, good ethics, who's chaste. I don't have to worry about my husband or my wife fooling around behind my back. Okay, so maybe she's a bit stubborn, or maybe he's a bit stingy, but what about the positives? If you show gratitude to Allah for the positives of your spouse, Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will increase those positives. And then show gratitude to your spouse for the positives as well. I mean, you got a white kurta. Some people will see that this is a white kurta. Some people might look for that 1 or 2 black spots, or the one or two specks of dirt. Now, what do we want to be in life? Sometimes, especially with people who are very close to us, what do? We're always looking for that speck of dirt. We're always looking for that speck of dirt. We're not willing to look at the whole thobe, or the whole garment is white. Why am I only focusing on the black spots? So we become very unrealistic with people who are close to us, like our spouses, only focusing on the negative and amplifying and magnifying the negative and exaggerating the negative. That person feels that I feel like the worst wife in the world. I feel like the worst husband in the world. No. Make them know that you are aware of the positives and that you appreciate the positives, and be genuine in your appreciation to them for the positives. Then now and then if you mention the negatives, at least they'll say, my husband doesn't generally complain. Now today he's complaining, at least I must take him seriously. You know, my wife, she's always talking positive about me. Today, she said something negative. You know what, I need to take it in mind. I need to take it into consideration. But if you forever going on and on and on about the negatives, then the person becomes immune also, and they feel, you know what, I can never do anything right in this person's mind or in this person's eyes, so why must I even bother? Show gratitude and Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala will bless you. May Allah grant us the understanding. Welcome back to Friday Night Live. We now move on to the final segment of the program, the Sunnah for the week. And once again, I remind you, the whole purpose behind this particular segment is immediate implementation. We have been discussing now for a number of weeks, alhamdulillah, I think what's about 6 months now since we commenced the program. We're still discussing the sunnahs of eating, and let us implement these sunnahs. Every week, let us say, make note of it, write it down. Let these programs be beneficial, not just something that we listen to and we view and it comes and goes. Let it make a difference to our lives. Let it bring us closer to the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So last week we mentioned about inspecting the quality of food. We discussed the hadith when old dates, dry dates were brought to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He first checked it to see if there was any insects, because old dates tend to be infested with insects. And why must you consume insects and unnecessarily they die and it can harm your health? But we also explained you don't do this now for any type of food. So somebody brings you a pot of food that was just cooked, and now you start prodding there that, hey, let me just check here. Is it well done? Is it cooked? I mean, that's disrespectful. It's against etiquette. But if they bring you something like dates where there is a possibility, then for your own health, you should. It's a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to check it. Then the ulama say, in the sunnah that we are discussing this week, don't criticize food. Don't criticize food. Abu Hurairah radiyallahu anh mentions that Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam never criticized food. If he felt hungry, he would eat, and if he didn't like something, then he would abstain. Here also we need to understand something, that a human being is a human being. You can't like everything. I can understand to one extent that parents want to give their children upbringing. So you'd force your child to have beans, and you'd force your child to have some of the dals and vegetables, because today's children, what they want, burgers, and they want Vienna rolls and sausage rolls and pizzas. They only want to eat the junk food. They don't want to eat healthy, wholesome food. Fair enough. From their health perspective, and also because you don't know what the conditions will be later on in life, so you can't only get them used to luxury foods. Sometimes they need to eat some basic foods also, because sometimes in life maybe they might go through a difficult period, and it mustn't be now they can't eat things which are a bit cheaper to purchase. That's understood. But we also have to understand human beings have their inclinations. Some people like some foods. I know some people, they can't eat chicken. And then you get people like me, I love chicken. But I'm not a person who loves mutton. I eat very little of mutton. So if you go somewhere and somebody has purchased and they present mutton to you, the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, if it's something you don't like much, don't criticize it. Oh, mutton, oh. No. That's your personal preference. You don't really like it. So eat how much you want to eat, or don't eat so much if you want to. Take another dish, but don't criticize the food, because the food is a bounty. It's a blessing from Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala. And also, the host will feel offended. The cook will feel offended. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a human. He also had his likes and dislikes. If he liked something, he ate it. If he didn't like it, he left it. Sometimes it might be a dish that you like, but it wasn't maybe cooked to the way you like it to be cooked. So dal and rice, or dal and rice as they would say, it's something I like, many people likes. But sometimes you go to some people's house, they might prepare it a bit differently. Quite a bit of masoor in there. So now it might not be to your liking in terms of how it was prepared, not in terms of the dish itself. Eat little bit, but don't criticize the food. Eat little bit, but don't criticize the food. Yes, if something was haram for consumption, if something was harmful for consumption, then the Nabi of Allah would speak. When Ali radiallahu anhu was suffering from a sickness and he was about to consume dates, even though dates are good and encouraged, Ali, dates is not good for your health. You rather leave that. So parents telling the children, don't eat sweets, understood, not good for your health. You're doing it for a justified reason. Or if you are doing some parhez, as they say, you're on a particular diet, or you only eat it, you're abstaining from certain foods for healthy reasons, then you can tell them, look, I won't have this because of my diet. But there also, it's better if you tell them up front, so it mustn't be that they prepare things and you can't eat anything. Then they also feel out of place. Or you know what, sometimes the food might be too strong. Sometimes it might be too much salt. Don't criticize the food. But there's also one point I want to mention, that yes, apart from the tarbiyah and training your children to eat different types of foods, more healthy foods, basic foods sometimes, not only expensive foods, as part of their training, you also at some point, some parents overdo it, you also at some point have to realize that some people have some natural dislikes. And don't force them to eat. Sometimes when a visitor comes also, it's not right to dish out in their food and to force them to eat. Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah teaches us the etiquettes of hosting. When the angels came in the form of human beings, right, they just entered, qalu salama, they just entered. And Ibrahim alayhi salam had already gone to his family and they slaughtered the animal and they put it up to roast. He didn't know who they were, but already he was ready to entertain them. But when he put the food to them, because they were angels and angels don't eat, he didn't stare at them, big eyes, because that makes a person uncomfortable. But he didn't totally neglect them also. You don't see now whether your guest is eating or not. He kept a brief eye on them, and then he said, "Ala ta'kulun, you're not eating?" Then they said, "No, we don't eat because we are angels." So he didn't become obsessed, watching every morsel that they take, but at the same time, he didn't leave them totally on their own. Here's the food, eat if you want to eat. He said, lightly encourage them. Allah ta'kulun, why not eat? Take a little more. Because sometimes the guests might want to take more, but out of shyness they don't want to take more. So when you offer them, they take. But don't force. Sometimes it's very difficult, Sometimes, like, everyone has their likes and their dislikes. So as I say, a person like me, you bring chicken, I'm very happy. Some of the more modern foods, I am very happy. But, some of the more traditional foods, my mother always shouts me, your mugs and your chanani dars and your magni dars and mutton maybe. So sometimes it might be that person, it's not the food that they relish the most. And now people just dish out into your plate and dish out into your plate. And sometimes it might be something that the person likes, but the person can't take in that much. They maybe had the meal previous to that or prior to that, they may have eaten a little bit more. So be considerate of people's preferences. This is also a sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. May Almighty Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala grant us the understanding. What a beautiful deen Allah has given us. Every minute detail is covered. It is for us to take benefit. Well, we come to an end of another edition of Friday Night Live. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala accept. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. We wish you all the best in this month of Muharram and throughout this year, the 14th 134th year after Hijrah. May Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala make it the best year of our lives, inshallah. And if all goes well, we meet again on the what do we say for TV? Is it airwaves as well? If somebody can maybe alert me in that regard. As I said last week, it's a great honor for us to be able to discuss deen and to meet with you. We're not physically meeting with you, but we are meeting with you in a different sense, nonetheless, to talk about the deen. As always, if you would like to email me, it's smr@itvnetworks.tv, S for Sulaiman, M for Muhammad, and R for Ravit, smr@itvnetworks.tv. Twitter at Sulaiman Ravat, the spelling there SulaimanRavat. Facebook, it's facebook.com/Sulaiman Ravat, and the website, it's sulaimanravat.com. Until we meet again, fi amanillah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
من ذا يفرج كربا بات يضنينا ويزرع الورد فينا والرياحينا وينشر الهدي إيمانا وموعظة فبالجهالة قد خابت مساعينا وينشر الهدي إيمانا وموعظة فبالجهالة قد خابت مساعينا